Hello, and welcome to Deadly Paranormal Podcast. I am your host, Tony Cotton-Gim. In this podcast, I am going to be talking about the paranormal, ghosts, legends, folklore, and supernatural creatures. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, and thank you for listening. In tonight's episode, I want to tell you about a local legend here in Tennessee called the Bell Witch. It has been called America's greatest ghost story, and it happened right here in Tennessee. In the decades since the witch, or spirit, first manifested around the Bell family on their farm in Robertson County in the early 19th century, the Bell Witch has attracted the attention of ghost hunters, skeptics, supernaturalists, religious leaders, storytellers, authors, historians, and the curious citizens from all over the world. Earlier sources of the Bell Witch legend are dubious at best, but provide a terrific look into the pervasiveness of the legend and the progression of the Bell Witch story through the years. The Bell family. John Bell was born in Halifax County, North Carolina in 1750, the son of William Bell and Ann Jones. In 1782, John Bell married Lucy Williams, daughter of prominent farmer John Williams of Edgecombe County, North Carolina. The Bells bought a farm in Edgecombe County and began amassing wealth and influence in the area. In 1804, the family, consisting of John and Lucy Bell and their children, Jesse, John Jr., Drury, Benjamin, Esther, Zadok, Elizabeth, and Richard Williams, and Joel Egbert, built a house and started a farm on 1,000 acres, located on the Red River in Robertson County, Tennessee. Of their children, Benjamin died as a young child. Zadok became a prominent lawyer and moved to Mississippi, where he also died relatively young. Esther married Bennett Porter in 1817. Jesse married Martha Gunn, daughter of Reverend Thomas Gunn, and later moved to Mississippi. John Bell Jr. married Elizabeth Gunn, also daughter of Reverend Thomas Gunn, and became a successful farmer in Robertson County. Drury never married and owned a farm on the north side of the Red River. Elizabeth, Betsy Bell, eventually married her former teacher, Richard Powell, and moved to Mississippi. Richard Williams Bell married 3 times to Sally Gunn, daughter of Reverend Thomas Gunn, Susan Gunn, daughter of Jesse Gunn, and Eliza Ordendorf, lived out his life in Robertson County. The youngest child, Joel Egbert, married twice and moved to Springfield. Despite the lasting impact of what the Bells termed our family trouble, the family continued to flourish, and some descendants of the Bells still live in Tennessee and other southern and midwestern states. The origin of the legendary Bell Witch is, of course, a mystery. In early accounts, the spirit itself provided its origin, stating, "I am a spirit. I once was very happy, but I have been disturbed and made unhappy. I am the spirit of a person who was buried in the woods nearby, and the grave was disturbed, my bones disinterred and scattered, and one of my teeth was lost under this house. I am here looking for that tooth. Of course, this cannot be verified. However, a number of Indian burial mounds could be found in the region. In another event, the witch claimed to be a spirit from everywhere: heaven, hell, the earth. I'm in the air, the houses, and any place at any time. I've been created millions of years. The first appearance of the unusual disturbances surrounding the Bell family is usually reported as an incident on the farm in which John Bell shot at a dog-like creature, which vanished. Drury and Betsy also began to see strange creatures near the property. These sights are accompanied by strange sounds around the house. Betsy, Drury, and John began to hear unaccounted for knocking on the door and windows, the sounds of wings flapping against the ceilings, and the sound of rats gnawing on bedposts. But more disturbingly, the sound of choking and strangling could be heard, along with the chains dragging and heavy objects hitting the floor. Sounds emanating from the bedroom as if beds were suddenly and roughly pulled apart, to which was added the sound of fighting dogs chained together, making the noise deafening. In all cases, the source of the noise was never found. No rats were found in the home despite thorough searching, and no damage to the furniture were ever discovered. During these demonstrations, the family refused to speak about the events to their neighbors. The spirit increased its activity, sometimes physically abusing the members of the family. Joel, Richard Williams, and especially Betsy were subject to being struck, pinched, and having their hair pulled relentlessly by the Bell Witch. Lucy Bell and John Jr. were left relatively unharmed by the witch. Lucy was proclaimed by the spirit to be the most perfect woman living, and the witch showed a great deal of compassion towards her, even caring for her and singing to her while she was ill. John Jr. had a long, intense conversations with the witch, but he never failed to show his animosity for it, declaring to be the spirit of the damned. One of the most famous occasions of the witch recited perfectly the sermon of Reverend James Gunn of Bethel Methodist Church, followed by the sermon of Sug Fort, despite the fact that they had originally been given at the same time, more than 12 miles apart. Family friend William Porter claimed the witch climbed into bed with him, allowing him the opportunity to seize the spirit in the bed clothes and attempted to throw it into the fire, saying only immense weight and terrible smell of it prevented him from succeeding. The witch had a dislike for the family's slaves, tormenting them relentlessly, beating them, and refusing to allow them into the house. A Bell slave named Dean stated that he encountered the witch several times, and that it appeared frequently in the form of a large black dog or wolf, sometimes with 2 heads, sometimes with no head. Dean also claimed to be turned into a mule and attacked several times by the witch. He carried with him at all times his axe and a witch ball, made by his wife as protection from the witch's influence. Visitors and neighbors were not immune from the witch's performances either. In one instance, the witch set 3 dogs, Caesar, Teague, and Bulger, on traveling shakers, who never traveled by the farm again. Another neighbor and husband of Esther Bell, Bennett Porter, fired a shot at a knotty log that had been conjured up by the witch, but the conjuration vanished. Only the bent tree and bullet hole remained. Another instance, Dr. Mize, a noted conjurer from Simpson, Kentucky, came to exorcise the witch and was mocked and frightened away. John Bell Sr. and Betsy Bell seemed to be the two most frequently abused by the witch. For some reason still unclear, the witch adamantly opposed the union of the childhood sweethearts Betsy Bell and Joshua Gardner, frequently resorting to ruthless taunts and physical abuse. Joshua and Betsy remained attached, but she put off marriage in fear of the spirit's reprisal. The witch's attacks on Betsy were not all related to her relationship with Gardner, and the constant threat of the witch began to affect her, such that she became prone to fainting spells and smothering sensations, often appearing exhausted and lifeless. Her experiences were not confined to the Bell property either. Betsy later described one incident when the spirit became so tantalizing, filling my mind with horror and causing me to become so nervous. My parents often sent me to a neighbor's to rest for a night. My first night away from home was spent with Thinny Thorne. Then we retired. There came a long knocking on our outside door, which seemed to fly open, and a great gust of wind was felt. Thinny sprang up at once and lit a candle. To our surprise, the door was not open. Then a voice spoke softly. "Betsy, you should not have come over here. You know I can follow you anywhere. Now get a good night's sleep." A soft hand patted my cheek. Then the voice again assured us that we would not be disturbed any more that night. The rest of the family often attempted to give Betsy relief, and family friend Frank Miles promised to protect Betsy from any further abuse by the spirit. Betsy said Frank was the most powerful man any of us ever saw, and it was just as fearless as any living man. One time he said to me, "Come sit by me, little sister. Nothing will bother you while I'm here." The witch responded, "You go home. You can do no good here." The witch then began abusing Betsy, slapping her, pulling her hair, before turning on Miles, knocking him over, and enraging him. Betsy continued to endure the spirit's abuse. After calling off the marriage to Gardner, Betsy was eventually courted and married to her former high school teacher, Richard Powell. Despite the apparent abandonment of the witch's torment in 1920, she left the area with her husband and settled in Mississippi. One of the central goals of the Bell Witch seemed to be the death of John Bell Sr., Old Jack Bell, as the spirit called him, was blasted with curses and heinous threats and serious physical torments. As abuse continued to impact his physique, Bell took to his bed and was cared for by John Jr. On December 19, 1820, John Bell failed to leave his bed, and John Jr. went to the cupboard to retrieve the medicine for his care. Instead of 3 medicine vials, he only found 1 vial. It was the third one of dark, smoky liquid of unknown origin. The voice of the witch gloated. It's useless for you to try to relieve old Jack. I have got him this time. He will never get up from that bed again. She claimed of the vial that she gave old Jack was a big dose. It was last night while he was fast asleep, which will fix him. The contents of the vial were thrown into the fire and erupted into a blue blaze. John Bell died December 20th, 1820. The Bell Witch crashed the funeral, disturbing the service and singing bodily drinking songs. Legend has it that the Bell Witch even had an encounter with the former president, Andrew Jackson. Jackson owned property on the Red River and desired to visit the Bell farm after hearing the stories. One of his weapons became stuck by an unseen force and could not be moved, despite whipping the horses, examining the wheels, and having it pushed by the man in his party. He exclaimed, "By the eternal, boys, this is the witch." To which the witch replied, "All right, General, let the wagon move on. I will see you again tonight." The wagon started off on its own accord, and they continued on their journey. That evening at camp, a self-proclaimed witch layer or witch hunter said he had a silver bullet and regaled the men with tales of hunting witches. Jackson whispered to a colleague, "I'll bet this fellow is an arrogant coward. By the eternals, I do wish the thing would come. I want to see him run." After which silence followed. Suddenly there was the sound of light footsteps prancing on the floor, and the voice stated, "All right, General. I am on hand and ready for business." The witch bade the witch hunter to shoot, but the gun did not fire. The hunter was struck by an unseen force, claimed to feel the pain of being struck by needles, exclaimed he had been grabbed by the nose, and fled from the tent. The witch exclaimed, "How the devil did run and beg. I bet he won't come through here again with his old horse pistol to shoot me. I guess that's fun enough for tonight, General, and you can go to bed now. I will come tomorrow night and show you another rascal and this coward." Jackson was eager to stay, but his party had enough, and Jackson returned to Nashville shortly thereafter. Mary Catherine Cates Batts, the wife of Frederick Batts, was believed by many to have been the culprit behind the disturbances known as the Bell Witch. Although not a poor woman, she was often mocked by others throughout the Red River settlement in Robertson County. Her improper use of words, along with her sometimes strange ways, led many to think that she was practicing black magic or other forms of the occult. In the early years of the century, Benjamin Batts, the brother of Frederick Batts, had a dispute with John Bell over the sale of a slave. Facts of the dispute were later tangled and became the source of a rumor to effect that John Bell and Catesy Batts had the quarrel, and that the Bell Witch was created by Kate Batts to get revenge on Bell. While there are plenty of other stories connecting the Bell Witch to Kate Batts, and some of the disagreement that existed between her and John Bell, recent evidence suggests that she had nothing to do with it. And in fact, contrary to reports of her claiming that she would get even with John Bell on her deathbed, Kate Batts actually outlived John Bell by many years. Today, there are many descendants of the Batts family living in Cheatham, Monterey, and Robertson County. Though it played a relatively minor role in the original Bell Witch legend of the early 19th century, the cave on John Bell's property has since become a focal point for visitors hoping to experience a bit of the haunting themselves. Added to the National Historical Registry in 2008, the cave is the only original feature from the legend that can still be seen today, largely unchanged from the way the Bell family would have seen it in 1817. Though numerous eerie events have been reported by visitors to the cave, including the renowned difficulty in taking photographs around the site in the pre-digital age. Nothing on the scale of the original haunting centered around the Bell house, since long torn down, has been reported since the early 1800s. Following the death of John Bell, the witch's activity dropped off sharply. The spirit was still active through the winter and the spring of 1821, but it soon bade the family farewell, telling them that it would be gone for 7 years. True to its word, the family remaining on the property, Lucy, Richard William, and Joel, claimed that the witch did return in February 1828, reappearing in much the same way it had appeared the first time, with shaking beds and unexplained noises. It soon vanished again, claim it would return to haunt the Bell descendants once again in 1835, but no other specific haunting of the Bell family or their property on the level experienced in the early 18th century have been reported. Despite this, unexplained activity in and around the Bell farm in Adams, Tennessee continues. Various encounters near the property along the old Nashville-Clarksville Road and in the famous Bell Witch Cave still draws tourists and ghost hunters to Adams. The Bell Witch has been the subject of countless modern books, analysis, documentaries, movies, including the 2006 wide-release motion picture An American Haunting, very loosely based on the Bell Witch legend. Though the haunting of the Bell family apparently ended early 200 years ago, tales of the Bell Witch are as compelling in 2009 as they were in 1819. Well, now it would be 2024. And those stories are still going around to this day. I myself have been to the Bell Witch Cave. Wish I still had some of those pictures, because there was a really eerie one in those. But sadly it has been lost. Maybe the witch herself took those photos back. I will never know. But this is the end of my story. I hope you all enjoyed. Leave me a comment down below. And if you really like this channel, consider giving me a subscribe. As always, have a good evening, everyone.